everyone. Welcome to the last session of the Entrepreneurs Forum. Thank you very much for hanging around all day. I hope you've had some insight and inspiration already today. For the final panel of the day, great to be back at the Watergate, by the way, isn't it, everybody? For the final panel of the day, I've got 3 agency leaders from around the world who are all members of the PROI Independent Agencies Network. In a minute, I'm going to give a very brief overview of some research that PROI just has out of their agencies around the world, and it's a bit of a temperature check really about how everybody's feeling about the future. And then I'm going to talk to my lovely panel about how you future-proof your agency. So we've had lots of discussion across the afternoon. This is kind of going to be a bit of a summing up with a global viewpoint, I hope, of everything we've heard so far today. First of all, let me welcome my panel to the stage. At the end, we have Richard Sang, chairman of SPRG, headquartered in Hong Kong. In the middle, Razania Aziz, CEO of Adfactors PR, based out of Sri Lanka. And then at this end, Lisa Ross, president of RBB Communications, based in Miami. Thank you all for being here today. Now, onto the preliminary research results that PROI have asked me to run through. I've managed to get through 23 years of writing and talking about PR without ever using a PowerPoint pack, so do bear with me. I might be doing the next slide, please thing. It's only just a couple of slides, don't have to worry about like enormous amounts of data. So PROI has 85 members around the world, a total of 7,500 employees, covering more than 60 countries and generating collective revenue last year of more than $1 billion. So it's a good sample. Nearly 60 agency leaders responded to the survey, which was done earlier this month, so it's super fresh across more than 35 countries. So it's a really good snapshot. The next slide gives us some interesting insight into agency confidence. So nearly all members who responded to the survey say they're expecting to make some decent money this year after average growth of 17% last year, also another great year. In fact, 51% of respondents said they are expecting double-digit growth, with many of those predicting growth of more than 20% for this year, a few even saying they're looking at growth of more than 30% this year. On the next slide, we can see what independent agencies see as the biggest challenges and opportunities coming down the line in the next 3 to 5 years. As you can see, cost inflations, profit margins, by far the biggest concern, with economic downturn and client budgets and constraints because of staff shortages and the ongoing talent crisis in second and third place. But more optimistically, majority of agencies are seeing opportunities in more profitable business models, and we've heard a few thoughts on that already this afternoon, and the growth of the whole communications industry, which nobody seems to think is in debate. Many more agencies think AI is an opportunity rather than the threat, which I think is encouraging. And others can also see an opportunity in much bigger corporate comms budgets and bigger demands from clients for more strategic corporate comms support. Despite everything that's happened over the past couple of years, a small minority of agencies, only a small minority, are seeing geopolitical tensions as a threat. Again, something that's come up a few times today. And a handful have said, very pertinent given our previous chat, a potential change in agency ownership is also front of mind for the medium term. So we obviously have to go and work out who they are, because there's going to be some nice scoops there, if I can work out who responded to that. On the final slide, we can see the practice areas where agency leaders are investing in bigger or new capabilities. Top of the list, probably no surprise, is further investment in digital, followed by integrated marketing, social media campaigns, and corporate reputation management. Other areas of investment named by the agency who responded to the survey include B2B marketing, issues and crisis management, public affairs, corporate social responsibility, which I guess would include ESG, corporate media relations, and employer branding. So now over to the panel for a little discussion about some of these findings and some other topics about future-proofing your agency. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. Now, tell me in your own words, it's all about sharing your experiences here. What have the past 30 months, and I can't quite believe it's nearly been that long, been like for your agency and for you personally as an agency leader? Lisa, I'll start with you.
Sure. Well, who among us won't say that every day brings challenges and demands, not only from clients, but also from our staff. Anyone? No, I didn't think so. It's been a very interesting ride the past 30 months, but it's also been satisfying to see that the infrastructure that we built at RBB and our diversification strategy had helped to guide us through some very difficult times. And it really, and I'm not talking, when I say infrastructure, I mean really the nuts and bolts, the making sure that we stayed on top of our receivables, our cash, managing it well, looking at who we feel is really at risk among the staff and clients, and where did we need to dig in, but also the diversification. When travel went out with COVID, our other areas of corporate communications, which really beefed up. So we found that being able to roll with the punches and pivot was key for us. One of the other points that I'd like to make is we really leaned into our employee-driven workplace. And I think for those of you who, and I know you mentioned earlier, the fear of engaging staff in all the issues, we believe it was very helpful to us. Opening up, our employee-driven workplace means that we have groups for everybody at RBB participates in a group, and that helps, they address different things, RBB Works, RBBU, things like that. And we went to our RBB Works department and asked them to look at ways which we could reduce expenses. What didn't they really need that they could live without that wouldn't affect performance? And in the first quarter of COVID, they came back with suggestions on how we would save $250,000. So that was good, great.
That's amazing. Rosani, what about you? What's your experience been?
I think I need to explain the situation that our country was in. So this is 30 months ago, tail end of the pandemic, when most of the world was recovering and getting back to normalcy. Sri Lanka went through catastrophe after catastrophe, and I'm sure all of you in the audience would have heard of something, because the time that the struggle managed to oust a sitting president, we were told that the number of foreign media in our country was just next to Ukraine. So that was the situation. So from January of 2022, we felt the onset of the economic crisis. The country didn't have foreign exchange to purchase petrol, gas. So there were petrol queues. There were times when I waited in a petrol queue for 7 days. We had no cooking gas. We had no, I don't want to scare you, I'm just laying the context to show you how we navigated the work we did with our clients. And then early April started the movement, the struggle for, with mass protests for the ousting of a sitting president and its administration. So this went on from February right up to August. And it was a period where there was no public transport, there was no vehicles on the road. And with 13-hour power cuts in our homes, we were compelled to go to office, because the office buildings had quotas to purchase fuel, and so with the use of generators, we were able to get some work done. Now, while we as a consultancy, as an agency, were going through all of that, our clients were experiencing worse situations, and we have clients who are giant apparel manufacturing exporters, with the media and activist groups hounding on them, saying, what about worker welfare? We have clients who are agri exporters in the tea industry. And again, there were media and, again, activist platforms and groups, while reporting on the situation in the country, were also bearing down hard on them, saying, hey, workers need to be compensated, they need to be paid. The workers couldn't come to work, leave alone get paid, and then it was a struggle to get orders out. I'm just giving you the situation in a nutshell. So while all that was happening, I think there was opportunity in all the chaos. And the opportunity that we felt was basically in counsel and in understanding the client's situation and in trying to find solutions for that. So it was there was no media releases or any PR tools that could be used because there was no paper for newspapers to be printed on. Everything had to go digital overnight. Plus, so an interesting experience, and if you would allow me, is we started providing advisories. Immediately, we employed policy researchers, analysts from think tanks and similar places, and I mean, because that was the need. The apparel manufacturers wanted the buyers to know the situation and not through sensational media reports. So a couple of things like that, and there are 3 examples that I'd like to share with you. One is going digital, using social listening, media monitoring, to the point that it became like contextual listening. Second thing is advisories, and so we started building on that capacity, and that has become a different revenue stream for us now. The third is we realized that our country, due to all the geopolitical situation in South Asia, could become the hub for SAARC. So there is an opportunity in that. I mean, a very popular social media platform is not used in India. They became our clients, and I'll tell you the name. All of you will know TikTok is our client, and we manage TikTok for Bangladesh and Nepal because, and I'm sorry, I'm just mentioning that as a client because just to understand that given the sensitivities that the other countries may have on that social media platform, it became an opportunity for us. So in a nutshell, there was opportunity in the chaos.
That's quite a different experience to what many of us experienced over the past 30 months. Richard, how have things been for you?
Okay, so probably I'm in the middle of these 2 ladies. So 90% of our business major focus in Greater China. So probably you all know that as of today, Greater China is still the places that have quarantine policies or isolation policies, so you can't like freely travel in and then without like staying in a hotel for a few days, if not more than that. So that also means that in the past 2 or 3 years, we lost all our physical events. Although you still have like social, you still have like media conferences online and that kind of thing, but you couldn't have physical events. Until last month, we still can't like eat at the same table, like 12 person a table. It was only relaxed like a week ago. So that's that can tell you how difficult we have to do media or any other physical events. But facing that, at the beginning of the pandemic, I wrote an email to all my office heads. I say there would be no pay cut, no layoff because of the pandemic or the financial situations. So I keep my promise until today. So the result is I lost about $1 million a year, or a little bit more than that. So, but not a big deal. So I make more in the past, so I can lose that kind of money now. But I think that's important because at least my colleagues, they will feel secure working with us. We also find ways to save some costs. So I think the only thing we can save cost will be the office premises. So we squeeze our office space a little bit. And also I also took that opportunity to buy 1 or 2 small offices in some smaller markets. So probably that will help saving future costs as well. So that's the situation now.
Well, there's 3 very different experiences there. I want to take that further and then talk about the future. What did you learn about yourself and your agency and the industry over the past couple of years that you are taking forward into what your agency looks like for the future, Lisa?
Well, I'm going to start backwards. So industry-wise, I think I learned that we are not an industry that embraces change. I always knew it, but we saw it. A lot of the firms that were slow to adapt to flexibility, remote working, a lot of them are not with us today. They just couldn't survive. And, you know, it's important to look at change as an opportunity, not something that's you're forced to do. Because those that embrace it tend to stay ahead of the curve. And I think one of the ways that we've been able to stay strong and continue the growth that we've had at RBB has been because we have a 5-year plan. And every year we sit down amongst the partners and we really dig into it. And it's like we check ourselves, make sure we're accountable. What are we on the path that we set out to do? And we update that plan every 5 years. And it's based on, it keeps us ahead of the curve. It keeps us thinking about the future. And it keeps us changing, which is really important, especially to staff. Because when it gets stale, they don't want to be there. They get bored. They're more open to being poached. And with clients also. We tend to look at clients as, at least twice a year, we look at it as a new business opportunity. If this client just came to us, we put that responsibility on the team leaders. What would we be doing differently for them? To make sure that the programs don't get stale. So it's all about really embracing change.
Can I just ask though, how difficult is it to do a 5-year plan when everything is still in such flux? I mean, it's settled down a bit, but you know, we don't know what's happening in the next 12 months in terms of economies and geopolitics.
Well, it's bigger thinking, umbrella. We look at what did we want to be? We said in 2015, by 2020, we wanted to be a $20 million shop with 20 breakout brands. One of the slogans of RBB is champion of breakout brands, with at least 20 breakout brands under our belt, and we wanted to maintain our 20% margins. So we look at it from that perspective. Are we getting there? Are we moving the needle each year? And if not, why? Do we need to adjust? Are we growing? What practice areas are growing and what aren't? It helps also to guide our investments.
Azani, what did you learn that you're taking forward into the future of your business?
So from a consultancy, from an agency point of view, we strengthened our public affairs practice and government relations became stronger. So like I said, this advisory has become, it's not a PR tool, it's an advisory to a point that the people that we hired to develop it are also questioning, they want it to be as neutral as possible, but given that we are an agency and we are working with the client, there has to be a little bit of tweaking that has to be done. So but more on a personal note, I think, and this is from more the culture of the organization and what was going on around us. So we at one point, my colleagues and I were walking to work. I mean, I live close by, 6 kilometers up and down. The others are walking even 10 kilometers. And we found that the clients were walking. So we made a hike out of it. So we would meet, it came to that, but it was interesting. So we got closer to our clients and we arranged for the teams. I mean, this may sound funny, but we arranged for the account director and the teams to organize so that they would either cycle to work along with the clients, or so we made it client-centric during that situation. Those little things have really helped us, and it also shows that getting more involved with the client, becoming their friend, really gets us through.
So is that now part of the way you operate going forward as well, even though you don't have to anymore?
No, we don't have to, but it just got us closer. I'm saying that was our experience.
Richard, what about you?
Okay, I find that money is very important. So cash and cash flow is very important. There's a few things I can give you, even small example. I remember like during the early time of the COVID, one college suspected to caught COVID. So at that time, I asked my admin people to take cash to all the pharmacy to buy RAT tests. So all my colleagues in the office test before they go home, or else they will, if they are infected, so all the building will be blocked. So that times it costs about like $20-something per test. So we need to bring like $2,000-something to the pharmacy and then to buy all the tests in the region in our district. So I think it's also important that during crisis, it's always a good opportunity for you to invest. So my office in Hong Kong, we have some like big conference room. I think Paul and Arun, they all have been to my office. We can allow clients to use it for AGMs or for results announcements, press conferences, etc. So during the past 2 years, the bookings were overwhelming because hotels are all closed. So we need to invest. We need to invest on the audio visual, on all the live streaming and all these facilities. But then, of course, we charge clients, and they pay happily because they can't even book in the hotel. There's no hotel ballrooms or conference rooms for booking. So you need to invest. I think the first thing is, when you are facing all the difficulty, you feel like there's no clients work, no meetings, no traveling, but make good use of your time. What I did during the COVID time, I went to the office every day and I finished my book that I started 15 years ago for the first chapter. And then I finished that within 3 months during the COVID time. So that's what I learned.
That's a good use of your time. That's quite a long time to finish a book, Richard.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about planning already, Lisa. What do you think the biggest considerations are now when you look at business planning and strategy for the next 2, 5, even further on? And has that changed? Is that changing? What those considerations are?
We see it's really important to have the integrated resources. You know, it's been talked about forever, and there are still agencies out there that haven't fully embraced it. And if you haven't already built a creative department, social, a solid team, then start figuring out a way to budget for that, there's another route to go with creative partnerships. You can form strategic partnerships, and that's how we started it with our digital practice. About 10, 12 years ago, we were outsourcing a lot of the web work that came in. And then we became the largest client of the web dev firm, to the point where we said, we might as well own this shop. And we wound up buying in. We became a partner with the owner, and it helped train our people more about that skill. They got more involved. They had to understand how to sell it because it was right there in front of them, and be able to work with the team rather than just see it as a vendor. So that's key to do. And we talked about, managing your infrastructure, the money, stay on top of it, making sure that I'm still surprised to hear a lot of agencies, they just let months go by without the billing or collection. Where, it's important, and you have to be comfortable talking about money with your clients. It's all about the budget and letting them know that we are looking at it and we're always seeking ways to maximize it for them. And then looking at service offerings. It's important, I think, to just take a shot and try to predict the future for your agency. And that means you might not always get it right, but if you sit down and you think, this is where I think things are going, put a stake in the ground and invest in that. Really develop that skill. You got to be all in to be good at something, and make sure you have the training as well. So those are some of the things that we've done. Just recently, we added to our HR department to make sure, and really we're having them own training and development, because we've also invested a lot, probably 50% more in the past 12 months in our tools to make sure that we can measure and we can show clients the value. And the team needs to know how to use them, how to talk about them, how to sell them. So it's all a matter of, it's a domino effect.
All over everything, Lisa, obviously. Rosani, what are the big considerations for you in terms of strategy and planning for the business now?
So just picking up from what Lisa said as well, I think for us it was building capacity amongst our team for an increase, enhancing the quality of counsel, because that became an important consideration for us, given, so finding solutions. How do you address the needs of the client, and getting them up to speed on counseling became the key thing for us.
And Richard, what about you?
I think this is a very interesting time, because in the past we always want to have like regional clients, international clients, global clients. But then during the past 3 years, I find that my offices which work for the local clients, in fact, the impact was the lowest, because no restriction on traveling and all that, and even geopolitical situation won't affect that. So I think that's how we plan for the future, will be the balance of what type of clients we are going to have. Another thing we are now planning would be how we can offer something not PR is offering in the past. We work for many listed companies. I've always believed that many of my senior people, we are much better financial advisor than the financial advisor our clients are using. So could we offer that service? Of course, we are not. In fact, we are allowed to sign, because I have CPA, I have lawyers, I have all those in-house. So we can even sign off a document. But of course, we won't do that. But there will be lots of other management, consultancy, or related kind of services that I always believe PR or communications people can do much better than other practices or disciplines, because even they give all the advices, we are the last one to convey those messages to stakeholders. So if we have that kind of talents, could we offer a more integrated not meaning like digital or whatever tools, but more like the content, more like the thought leadership, that area of services to our clients. I think that's also what I'm planning to do.
Just building on that, Richard, when we saw that slide about threats and opportunities in the sector, what do you think the biggest threats and opportunities are for independent agencies now?
I think for independent agency, if go back to what I just mentioned, will be like whether we have that kind of capital or asset to further invest. Secondly, will be for independent agency, one thing that always like concern us will be succession. We always like this panel, this forum have already talked about like M&As, exits, and all that. And Paul also asked, like at the very beginning, who came here like 10 years ago. Many people raised their hands. That means we are all 10 years older. So we are much closer to retirement than 10 years ago. I think for independent agencies, if we want to keep the company, so what kind of talent, what kind of people we need to hire? So we still own the company, but then someone runs it. I don't see holding company or those conglomerate, they have that problem. They change their MD, they change their CEO all the time, but then the company continues. But for independent agencies, that's the most concerning, most troublesome question to us, I would say.
And what conclusion have you come to?
I tried to build up a system like 10, 12 years ago. I always tell people I don't involve in clients' work, I don't meet clients, I don't do pitches at all. Luckily that all my senior people are still with us. They all joined us like 20 something years ago. But that also means that they are also close to retirement, because they work at SPRG like when they are early 20, but now they are early 50, if I disclose their age. So there's still a problem there. We need to find like mid-30, early 40 who want to work for an independent firm and build or advance their career there. I think that's the most difficult part. So I'm trying to do so.
Okay, so looking for the next generation of leaders. Yes. Rosani, what about you? What do you think the biggest threats and opportunities are for the independent sector?
Yeah, so retaining staff retention will still be a challenge. And again, I have to refer to the situation in Sri Lanka. If you don't mind, you'll hear an overdose of it. I lost 5 from my 5 is a big number from the digital team almost overnight. They just fled the country. They got visas to Dubai, and they ran away. So obviously that this kind of situation, I mean, it was unexpected, but still it took me quite by surprise. So keeping, I know there was a lot of discussion in the morning about HR and about how to keep them excited and motivated. To me, I think right now, remuneration means a lot. Yeah, work environment, culture, all of that is fine. But given the situation, we also instituted a cost of living allowance for each of our staff, which was imperative. It was not just a nice to do, it had to be done. But right now, our challenge is to get over this situation and to make it easy and comfortable enough for our team to want to stay on. And then hopefully once we come out of this whole recession and economic situation, things would improve. Yeah.
So a lot about talent there. Lisa, what's your experience?
Always be recruiting, always. Yeah, you have to work hard to keep the people that are good and always be looking for new people. And also, the strategic partnerships like PROI. I find myself more and more reaching out to different partners, seeing if there's ways we can work together. Maybe we can borrow somebody from your team. If you have an expertise a few years ago, I think just to call out Luke for a minute, GNS, we wound up going into a client together that we doubled down on for a while because it was the Port of Miami. And we were doing work for them, but they wanted somebody with some real port expertise. We were helping the new director get integrated into the community for us. And that was easy. And just communications with all their stakeholders. But that expertise, we looked at who might have it, and we found it at GNS, and we tapped somebody there to work on our team. So I think you have to be open-minded to solving problems and looking for ways to serve the client best and not being afraid to try something new. That has served us well. And otherwise, with the talent, it's just really train. We talked about predicting the future. One of the areas, all of a sudden, for years we've done energy, but it was never one of our largest practice groups. But in the last few years, energy and renewables has become tremendous. We've experienced tremendous growth in that area. We're to the point we're number 4 in the country now. And we see a lot more opportunity with this. So we're looking at, there's not a lot of people out there. Recruitment is tough, so it's looking at how do we train people, where do we send them, looking at corporate positions. And I think you've all seen in the last 2 years, corporate poaching is been really tough on firms, especially being headquartered in Miami, where in the last 12 to 18 months, a lot of companies have decided they want to live in Florida. So
yeah, I wonder why.
Embrace your people.
We saw a little bit from the slide about big areas for investment for agencies and where they're putting their money. Thinking about future-proofing, specifically, what would you say are the areas where independent agencies need to invest now if they're not already? You've talked a little bit about digital and social and creative, Lisa, but are there any other areas, or do you want to say a bit more about that are a complete no-brainer for success 5 years from now, for instance?
Tools. You got to be leading the pack, and in the sectors and your strong practice groups, you got to make sure you have the right tools so that you are showing the client what's to come. You can help them see the future of something and why they should be doing something or not doing it. You know, we came out with we call it a tool, predictive media analysis report. And we're able to, it's not an inexpensive tool, but we coupled it with our social listening. And we can look at whether the life cycle of a story or something with social media. How long, what should they dig into and invest in, or really don't waste time? And it was harder to argue that point without having the data. So, you know, we all know that data analytics is important, but you got to have the tools at the ready to work with.
Yeah.
Rosani, what do you say about tools?
So we have invested and we are driving that unit with a force, is using tools, using social listening tools, using contextual listening is what, and contextual targeting. I think that's become a key area in building strategy, in doing strategy. Also, we find that we're hiring more media analysts, political analysts, political researchers, and that the nature of our hires have also changed, because just in keeping up with the delivery of what clients require. So yeah, it's changing from content developers to more listening and contextual targeting.
That's really interesting. Richard, lots of tool investment.
I think there will be three things. One will be tools, but I will look at more basic things, like, for example, like translations, editorial, because that will help the colleagues to do their work more efficiently. So that's one. Secondly, I would say invest in some smaller M&As. Because in the past, we always try to like hire some senior people and hope they will build the business and then all that. And then probably like 95 out of 100, that's a failure. They don't bring in that much business. If they could, they will set up their own firm. They won't work for you. So might as well you buy a small business, and then you that's already some guarantee there. The third thing is even more traditional. If you can, I would say buy property now.
I wanted to ask you all, actually, we've talked a lot about purpose-driven brands, purpose-driven agencies. There's a lot more work going on in the ESG sector globally for everybody. Do you think that is that a flash in the pan, or is the agency of the future, particularly independents, going to have to really double down on schemes like B Corp, proper ESG commitments, all of that kind of stuff? Where do you see that going, Lisa?
I think it's just going to continue. It's important to the people. They want to, especially the younger generation. I think some of the older staff, they're focused on different things. You know, we actually went from 3 owners to 12 in the last few years, just to reward them for their commitment and also retain them. The top of the house, and we're looking at ways to roll that out even further. And I think that the junior folks wouldn't even think of wanting to be part of a company, even buying into it, if they didn't believe the culture and the purpose, that they didn't align with it. So I think understanding what's important to your folks and key clients is worth the time and investment, and doubling down.
Rosani, what do you think?
So the consumers are demanding it, the brands are demanding it, and our clients have to adapt to it. So we're supporting them on it.
Richard?
Okay, in fact, that's what I want SPRG to do, because I set up an NGO 7 years ago. So at that time, I always think that should be the first NGO under a PR group. So during the past 2 or 3 years, we went to visit lots of single and elderly families who caught COVID. We give away lots of meal coupons, lots of RAT tests, lots of medicines and all that. And we are still doing so on a weekly basis. So every year we sort of like co-organize with local NGOs for like 50 or more activities a year. And then we send out about like 200,000-300,000 worth of US dollars kind of whatever materials or products to these people. And then I think in the whole world, ESG is like becoming a lot more important. Most listed companies, they need to have their ESG report ready. It's not about just donating money. They need to let people know they are embracing this belief. They are finding something that they are really suitable for their brands, that their stakeholder also very agree that they should do it, and they should do it together.
I've got one further question for you all, and then I think we've got a couple of minutes for Q&A from the floor. What one thing do you think independent agencies and the entrepreneurs we've got here today, I can't say that word, sorry. What one thing would you say is critical to future-proof your agency now?
Are you going to start with me again? I'd say predict the future. Look at your agency and with a critical eye, and where do you want to be in 5 years and in 10 years? Do you want to still be part of the agency? Do you have the people that can run it? If you want to step away, and make sure you're cultivating that future.
Would you advise caution or boldness?
It's a balance. It's a very fine balance. And it may not actually all come from within. There are certain, we've done several acquisitions over the years to, that was the other thing when I talked about always be recruiting, but for growth as well as talent, because we've gotten some really great people through our acquisitions. It wasn't always about the clients, it's revenue and people. Sometimes the clients weren't right for us, there was a conflict, but I think that it's just key to look at how you can keep them and just know what's important. You got to talk to them. That's what I found during COVID. My partners and I really spent a lot of time getting to know that mid to junior staff a lot more than we ever did. And understanding them more, what's important to them, and building the relationships with them, I think really helped. I learned that I needed to be a better listener. Oftentimes you tend to move fast past it, and I worked on that. So just, talk to your people.
All comes back to the people. Rosani, what's your biggest piece of advice for future-proofing your agency?
Yeah, I would say adapt to the client's changing needs.
That's true.
Richard?
I would say remember and stand firm with your belief why you want to set up your agency at the very beginning. When I set up SPRG 27 years ago, I want to build a big group or agency, but then I will use this platform to benefit the community where we operate. So that's what I'm doing now.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you all very much. That was wonderful. I think we've got like 2 minutes and 3 seconds, in fact. Does anyone have a question? Mr. Fogg, can we have a mic down the front here? Thanks, OJ.
Hi, thanks very much indeed. That was great. A couple of questions. Lisa, how do you save $250,000 overnight? But then the real question is, AI was listed as a major opportunity in the survey, and human beings typically overestimate the impact of technology in the short term and underestimate it in the long term. So what really do you think will be the impact of AI on PR?
It's a great question. Thank you, Richard.
So you've only got 2 minutes.
I'll just say really quick, a lot of it had to do with food. We cut out a lot of food that people didn't want anyway. A lot of the coffees and things that nobody paid attention to before, and we had a candy wall that everybody thought was adding weight to them. So we got rid of that. And AI, like I said earlier, it's all about tools, investing in tools, and it's the data, being able to back up the counsel that you're sharing with clients. real-time data and what's happening and how their stakeholders are thinking of them or others in their industry is a path to that.
Anyone else want to answer the AI question?
No, I agree to what Lisa said.
Any other questions? 35 seconds. Chap in the middle.
Sorry for stealing your
Sorry, she's nicked the mic.
Saw me first. I just wanted to ask about, you've all sort of touched on it. Razani, particularly, I loved your what you were saying about how you had to sort of transform and become sort of this closer, trusted client advisor, right? So when we think about, I'm Sophia from Glenelton Strategies. So when we think about our clients, they have so many agencies on their roster, not just in the communications, so many different types. I think, Richard, you also mentioned managing consultancies and so on. Mm-hmm. And I just would love to hear from you guys on how and why you think you were able to evolve just from core traditional PR offerings into becoming this trusted client advisor on all sorts of issues. Like why the PR agency?
If I can answer first. My background is more like finance, investor relations. So the benefit is we always get in touch with the board. And we are always the longest partner with them, not just at the good time, but also at the bad time, or even at the bad time. So that kind of trust, it built on a much longer history than many other consultants. You find different lawyers for different legal cases. You need to change your auditor like every 9 years, but you don't need to change your PR agency. Like you can use them for life. So I sort of established lots of friends who were clients, and I think that's important. But what we need is whether we acquire that skills, that expertise. Either we claim that's in-house or either we claim that's a partner. So I think that's the most important thing.
Foolish to wear wool.
So if I may also, just to add to that, so the apex body of the apparel manufacturing exporters is our client. And during the time of the crisis, their biggest concern was that buyers, and this is just a statistic, 45% of apparel imports to the US is from Sri Lanka. So it accounts for a considerable amount of our GDP. All the athleisure brands, your Lululemons, your Nikes, your Victoria's Secrets, because Sri Lanka has developed the, and now I'm doing a personal pitch on behalf of my clients, Sri Lanka has developed the talent in manufacturing that kind of garment, apparel. So their biggest concern was that buyers were getting jittery, that orders that production wouldn't be completed, and were considering moving some of the production orders to other competing countries. And it's not that the production couldn't be done, but it was just because of the news that was getting reported, the sensationalizing, and because of that. So they wanted, so we actually, it was our strategy to come up with an advisory that they could share with the clients, which gives factual information about what exactly is going on and what the government is doing towards maintaining some semblance of order among the exporters, among the major exporters, because look, our country was cash-strapped for dollars, so we needed the exports. The exports were the only thing that kept our economy, and is still keeping the economy running. So that little idea, which stemmed at the moment of need, has now become a whole business unit for us. So it's not only the apparel, it's for the other exporting sectors. The government wants an advisory done, so it just stemmed out of a situation.
Okay, I think we've got to wrap up now. Thank you all so much for your attention. Thank you, panel, for your insights.
He wanted to ask a question.
There was one more question.